portion of theory. We will go over the anatomy of the face. So the important systems that determine the health of the face are these three systems: the vascular system, the nervous system, and the muscular system. So we're going to go in depth into each one of those. I will preface by saying, as well as the rest of the theory portion, I am giving you guys the gist of each one of these, but it is up to you guys to, when you're studying for the test, to dive into these a little deeper to really make sure that you completely understand all aspects of them. There's a lot of information when it comes to the anatomy and physiology of the face. We need to be experts in skin, we really do, and because that is our canvas. So knowing what is on top and what is underneath needs to be our specialty. I do think that the test requires us to know a little more than we probably have to. I think you will probably learn it for the test, and then you might not ever remember a lot of that. You might not have to apply it later on. But I do think it's important to know. So the vascular system, the nervous system, and the muscular system is what we're going to jump into. So vascular system is going to be the vessels of the face. Blood flow affects the complexion, affects healing. Our blood receives our skin receives its nourishment from our blood. So knowing how the blood is moving throughout the face is very important. Blood contains electrolytes, hormones, and other things that are repurposed for other parts of the body. So our blood there's pieces of our blood that will turn into other things that we need. And then our blood is also filtering out unwanted things. So, and all of that happens at the skin level as well. So the arteries of the body, arteries come from the heart and they are pushing to the places of the body. Okay, so arteries are carrying fresh, pure blood from the heart, pulsated, bright red blood. We all have seen movies probably, or hopefully not in person, where you have been cut and the arteries are going to be that pulsing blood, spraying blood, right? Veins are what bring the blood back to the heart. It's calm in the veins. It is not nearly as at a rapid rate because it's not being pushed by the pumps of the heart, okay? It is usually drained blood. It's darker in color. It's also requiring oxygen. That's why it's darker. The arteries are carrying oxygenated blood, where the veins are bringing back blood that's needing some more oxygen. So blood acts as the carrier for many things. The head and the neck are supplied by the carotid artery, and the blood is returned by the jugular vein. So carotid then branches off into the transverse facial and the anterior temporal arteries, and then into smaller branches called capillaries. So I want you guys to imagine the artery as the oxygenated blood that has just came from the lungs. It leaves the heart and it branches. Your brain has told it that it needs to go to the face. Okay, the face needs oxygen. So it leaves the heart and it travels through the carotid artery. So it's pulsing through the carotid artery. It reaches the face, and then it splits into the transverse facial and the anterior temporal arteries. So it splits into two different arteries. And then from there, it splits into tons of little branches. Okay, lots and lots of little branches that look like the branches of a tree. And those are called capillaries. Okay, in those capillaries, that is where oxygen, water, and lipids are it's diffusing, oxygen is being diffused into the lipids and the tissues of our face. Because remember, the carotid artery's whole goal is to bring oxygenated blood to your face. So that oxygen is what our face is needing. So in the capillaries, that oxygen is then diffused into the tissues. And then what's really neat is that those capillaries will then take waste products and starts to bring them back to the heart. So it brings it there, kind of picks up waste products, and then it starts returning to the heart. Let me pull up a picture. I'm trying to like put this into another way to describe it. So our blood is in the heart and it has just picked up oxygen. Okay, so imagine it's carrying little backpacks of oxygen, and it on the backpacks it says go to the face. Okay, so they get into the carotid artery, that's the subway system that the blood is taking to go to the face. Okay, and then it gets off on the exit of, there's two exits. The exit that it is getting off at is either the transverse facial or the anterior temporal arteries. Okay, so half of the blood is going to one, half of the blood is going into the other one. Okay, either the first exit or the second exit. They don't know, their backpacks tell them, they know which one to go to. Okay, then when they get off at those arteries, then it branches off into smaller little ranch roads. Okay, they don't know, they all know which way they're going, but it's small little roads that they're getting to, and then they finally reach their destination, and it's a little house. And when they get to the house, they drop off their backpacks of the oxygen, and then they pick up all the junk. Okay, so they pick up the carbon dioxide, they pick up urea, they're picking up the yucky stuff that has been left at the house. But then they can't get back on the same subway because that subway was in an artery and it only brought them there. So they have to get back on, they have to get back onto a venule, which will bring them to a vein. Okay, so capillaries, arteries and capillaries bring them to the destination. Venules and veins bring them back to the heart. Does that make sense? Venules. So capillaries are the tiny little ranch roads. Venules are also the tiny little ranch roads, but they are the return. They return through venules and veins. Venules are the smaller ones, veins are then the bigger ones. I used to teach second and third grade, and no. I had my kiddos, we were learning about the heart, and I had them on the playground. We labeled slides like based on arteries or veins. And then the playground, the actual playground itself was the heart. They like had to pick up rocks and hold the rocks, and that was their oxygen. And so then they had to go down the slides for their arteries and then go back, jump up they had to climb things that were the veins to get back to the heart. And it was so funny. So that was a brief overview of the vessels of the face. There's much more intricate talk about vessels. I love the way My Lady talks about the vessels. Our SPCP book doesn't really go into vessels that much. So I would use the My Lady book to dive into it more. Make sure you really understand it. If you need to tell somebody to explain it out loud, that is really always very helpful for me. So now we're going to jump into nerves. That's the second system that works on the face. There are 12 cranial nerves that come directly from our brain. We have two different types of nerves. We have motor nerve fibers, and then we have sensory nerve fibers. Okay, our motor nerve fibers, I want you guys to think of those as the neurons that are activating our muscles. Okay, so our brain is an amazing thing, and it communicates with our muscles through neurons. That's how they speak, that's how they talk to each other. So our brain is telling our muscles when to move, how to move, also telling our organs how to run, how to work, what to do, All of that happens through motor nerve fibers. Okay, so if I want to pick up my right arm, I pick it up because there is a neuron that my brain has activated in order, a neuron in order to make my arm move. Okay. The other type of nerve fibers that we contain are sensory nerve fibers. Those are the ones that are responsible for our sense of touch. Also, our aging happens through those nerves. Information is brought from the senses to the brain. So, a smell enters our nose. It's those nerve fibers that communicate with the brain. Oh, that smells like coffee, or that smells like a flower. Um, so though our touch, we feel something. Pain happens through our sensory nerve fibers. Okay. So the cranial nerve number 7 is what controls our facial expressions. It enters the ear and then the eye, then the cheek, then the mouth, then the lower jaw. So that's a big nerve that enters into the face. Do you guys know anybody who has suffered from Bell's palsy? So that is because of the cranial nerve number 7 has malfunctioned for whatever reason. So it then from that nerve splits into smaller fibers throughout the face. It carries impulses to our tear glands, our saliva glands, our taste buds, and the muscles of our ear. The other nerve that works in our face is cranial nerve number 5. And it's called the trigeminal nerve, and it supplies the cheek, the conjunctiva, the skin of the lower lid, the side of the nose, the nasal vestibule, our teeth, our tympanic membrane, and 2/3 of the tongue. So if you guys see between those two, they are kind of intertwined, right? So they're both working on our ears, our eyes, our mouths, our teeth, our jaws. They're both working on those. So they work together. But it is cranial nerve number 5 that does communicate pain and touch of the face. Okay, any questions on the nerves?
Are there any I learned best because I'm a like through YouTube? So are there any
Yes,
things you
absolutely. YouTube is an excellent resource. So yeah, when I finish today, I usually talk to you guys about like ways to study. YouTube is such an excellent resource. Like, how did we live without YouTube? Yeah, yeah. YouTube it teaches us everything. So absolutely look at YouTube, especially we're about to get into the muscles. Just a heads up, the muscles are usually when people completely glaze over while I'm talking to you guys because it's a lot and they're crazy names. Okay. So I would recommend looking up every one of these on YouTube. And while it's going, have something to tie your memory to what's happening. When I was in college and I studied anatomy and physiology, I work really well with colored pencils and colored pens and highlighters, and I would assign colors to things to help me. So um, for example, all the muscles of the eye, make them blue, make them one color. And that way, when you're taking those YouTube videos, taking notes as I'm talking today, whatever, you can put it all together and like feel a color with it. I don't know if you guys work that way. That's how I work. So, definitely use YouTube. We've had girls in here who have actually bought some apps that are like muscle anatomy study tools. I don't know a specific name of one, but I know there are apps to help you study for muscles that are for like anatomy students. I like Quizlet. I don't know if you guys have heard of Quizlet before. It's a website that is essentially like index cards online. So you can make them or you can use ones that other people have put on there. There are permanent makeup ones for New Mexico. So it's for your test, and it might say the frontalis on the front. You click it, and it tells you what the frontalis muscle is and what it does on the back. So Quizlet is an excellent resource. So I went to college before tech was like a thing. So I, in college, studied with index cards. So what I did was I bought stacks and stacks of index cards. That's how I studied all through college, and hole punched the corners of them and would put them on a ring. And as I sat on the sub on the bus, whatever, at a stoplight, as you're sitting around watching TV, carry your stacks, your index cards with you, and flip them, and just study, study, study all the time. Just carry them with you all the time. They make now on Amazon some really cool sticker paper. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's traceable sticker paper. And so you can put it like on your book, trace the face, highlight the muscle, and you can peel it off and put it on your index card. This right here is the 15 major muscles in your SPCP book. They do an excellent job of going over the muscles. My recommendation is, I think it's section 8 in your SPCP book. Don't fill out your workbook in pen. If you have, you might go over it with whiteout so that you can continue to quiz yourself. You can even make copies of it, however, or just write the questions down somewhere else. But that way you can refer back to it before the test and continue to quiz yourself on those muscles. But these are the 15 major muscles, and we're going to go into these. Now, another way that you guys can study these, most of these muscles, like 90% of these muscles, are named with Latin. Latin is great because it tells you what the muscle does. If you know any bit of Latin, it will teach you how to break the name of it apart to where you don't even have to really memorize what it is. It sounds like a crazy name until you look at what the Latin meaning is of that word. So when I was in college, I had a lot of Latin-based classes so that you could medically look at something and it will teach you what it is. So for example, orbicularis oculi. This is a major muscle. Most other eye muscles are going to tie into it. If you look at the picture over here, orbicularis oculi is the major muscle that goes around your eye. Orbicularis translates to, in English, sphincter. Okay, so sphincter muscle is a circular muscle. We have a few of them in our bodies. Our eyes are one of them. You guys might not have known that your eyes actually close into a circle. So anytime you see orbicularis, that means the sphincter muscle. Oculi translates to eye. So you can immediately know right there, it's the major circular muscle around your eye, right? So most of these are named after Latin terms. Another one is the levator labii superioris. Okay, levator, what does that mean in Latin? It means the upper. Levator, to go up. Labii translates to lip. Superioris means on top. Okay, so what does that do? It's your upper lip muscle, the muscle that moves your upper lip up. So levator goes up, labii, lip, superioris on top, right? So most of those, if you get in trouble on your test, if you have looked back at what the Latin meaning is, you can navigate that way. Some of them don't. Some of them have just a different name. But like the rhizorius, we can't break that one apart. But most of them you can. Okay. So let's jump into it. What I want you guys to know about each muscle is where is it located and what does it do? Sometimes where is it located, you need to know what muscles are around it. You need to know if it's working at the nose, if it's working at the mouth, is it working at the eye? You need to know location and around where it is at, plus what is it doing? What's its job? Every muscle has a job. It's not just sitting in your face. So you need to know why. What is its job? So When working with the eyebrows, it's important to know what muscle you're working over, um, mainly because we live in a time that if somebody is coming to you for their eyebrows, to get their eyebrows done, they care about what they look like, right? We all care. All of us women care about what we look like, but a lot of our clients have had fillers or Botox. So Botox has been injected into the muscles to keep those muscles from moving. Um, Sometimes if they have Botox at that area, their brows might look a little different than what they would without Botox. So we need to know how those muscles are running through the face to be able to see how the movement is going to affect your shape. Okay. So the first one, the biggest one, around your eyebrows is going to be the frontalis muscle. If you guys look at this image here, the frontalis is huge. It's the majority of our foreheads. Okay. It connects down into the eye, and it's a paired muscle that comes and connects all the way up at the top of your scalp. So the majority of your forehead is the frontalis. Okay. If your clients have asymmetrical brows or they lift them asymmetrically, it's within this muscle. So, like my kids, my husband, they can move, I cannot, but they can move their eyebrows up and down. It's because they can activate different parts of the frontalis. I cannot, but I also have one eyebrow that's much higher than the other one. So that means I am activating one side, but just not on purpose, right? So the frontalis is the one that is changing the height of your eyebrows. The next one is the corrugated supercilii. So it is underneath the orbicularis oculi, and it draws the eyebrows together and down. So if you look at where it is located, it's located right through our brows, through here. It is what women can scrunch to give, I can't do it, but to give your, like, yes, just like that. So you're scrunching your corrugated supercilii. That's what's making, yes. So it's that muscle that runs right through the arch of the eyebrow there. It's what makes you frown. It's your frowning muscles of your forehead. So the test asks questions like, which muscle is the frowning muscle of the forehead? So you would know it was but it gives you 4 options. So what is confusing about the test is it might say frontalis, corrugated supercilii, procerus, and then it might give you like an eye muscle. So you just have to pick the one that you know is the most accurate, which is going to be that corrugated supercilii. It is also, most women get those wrinkles in the center of their eyebrows, and so that is the corrugated supercilii that's responsible for that. The next one is the procerus. The procerus originates in the fascia of the nasal bone, so it starts right in here, and then it fans up between the eyebrows. And then it inserts at the center of the forehead between the eyebrows, and it pulls the center of the forehead down. So all 3 of these muscles are kind of working together. They kind of tie in together, but you do notice that all 3 of them all interfere also with that orbicularis oculi. So all the muscles are working together and around each other. So moving down, next we're going to talk about the temporalis muscle. So the temporalis originates at the scalp and inserts into the jaw. So that's the muscle that runs through our temples right here. Next is going to be that orbicularis oculi. There is an outer and an inner orbicularis oculi. It's split into two different muscles in there. The outer orbicularis oculi is what closes outer orbicularis oculi that reacts quickly. The inner is the one that's more associated with the palpable. Palpable translates directly to eyelid. So anytime you see eyelid, it is palpable. That's the palpable. And we see a few muscles are going to be labeled, named after that. Um,
Can you take it?
do you want to? Um, so the inner is associated with the eyelid. It is inside the eye, and it softly closes the eye. Okay. So inner is soft, outer closes forcefully. Sure. She's acting like she might want a nurse. So we have to, that is the muscle that when we're doing eyeliner that you are holding. You're trying to keep them from closing that eye. So that's why our stretch is really important. We're working on that orbicularis oculi. It originates at the frontal bone and then it inserts into the lateral palpebral raphe. Do you need to know the lateral palpebral raphe? Just know that it inserts into the eyelids, right? The eyelid. Palpebral is eyelid. So just know that. It's all working around the eyeball. The next one is the levitator palpebrae superioris. Okay, well, what can we dissect from that name that can tell us what it does? Levitator, go up. Palpebrae, eyelid. Superioris, top. I like that. Top. So it's the top eyelid. So it's the muscle that lifts the upper eyelid. Okay. It works against the orbicularis oculi in order to work. I've put the origin and the insertion there, not that you guys have to have those memorized, but just so that you guys understand the location. So as you're studying, if that helps you, if it overwhelms you, you can cross it out and ignore it. It's just supposed to help. Okay, next is going to be the muscles around the nose. So we have some of these muscles, I have to be honest, I don't know why we need to know all the muscles of the nose when we're doing permanent makeup. It's kind of silly to me, but I'm going to go over them with you guys. So some of them I don't even have explanations for because we don't really need to understand. We just need to know where they are. So the compressor narium minor. Okay, so what does compressor do? We can imagine in our head it's compressing. Narium translate to nose. Minor, it's a small muscle. So that's what we need to know. It compresses the nose. So let's find it. The compressum narium minor, right here. So yep, it's a tiny nose. It's right in here. It just helps our nose wiggle. Okay. Why do we need to know that for permanent makeup? I have no idea, but it's there. So most of us probably do not have a very large compressor narium minor. Okay. Next is the dilator nares anterior. So dilator is the opposite of compressor. It's getting bigger. Its nares is the nose. Anterior means top. Okay. So just like the compressor narium, then we have the dilator right next to it. A bigger nose muscle that we do need to know more about is the nasalis. That is also a sphincter muscle. It is what is responsible for flaring our nose. It has an alar part and a transverse part, just meaning that it's working in two different ways. You can sometimes flare your nostrils up or you can flare your nostrils out, but it's still flaring your nostrils, okay? The next one we already talked about is the procerus. It's in with the nose because I want you guys to understand that it is part of the forehead, but it also is part of the nose. So it works in both pieces. The next one I have highlighted because it is what I feel like is probably one of the only important ones. It's the quadratus labii superioris alicae nasi muscle. Very, very long muscle. The reason why it is important is because it moves our upper lip. Okay? On the picture, it's right here. So it runs next to our nose. I know this has been a test question. Which muscle is the snarling muscle? And that's if you can make like the snarl face. I don't know how to make the snarling face, but it is that muscle that works the upper lip. and it originates from the nasal bone, and then it inserts into our nostril, into our upper lip. This right here, this picture on the left, is a better picture of showing you the quadratus labii superioris alocate nasi muscle. It just moves this. I don't know how to do it. I guess that. I don't know.
Trying to spell this is like giving me a stroke.
Yeah. Well, and it what can be tricky with it too is sometimes it's called the quadratus labii and sometimes it's called the levitator labii. So
on the left photo is the green.
It's the green. Uh-huh.
No.
Not happening?
Yeah, might need a break.
Okay. Oh goodness. Oh goodness.
We tried.
Oh, 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 oh. She's
We tried real hard.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move into the muscles of the mouth. So the muscles around the oral opening, we will first talk about the buccinator. The buccinator is the muscle that is in the cheek. It is what holds our cheek to the teeth as we're chewing. So if we didn't have this muscle, we would be chewing on our cheeks all the time because they would be getting between our teeth. So it is what holds our cheeks away from our teeth while we're eating. Next is the depressor anguli oris. So we can break that one apart. Depressor is lower. Anguli means it's at the corner of our chin here. And oris is mouth. In opposition of the depressor anguli oris is the levitator anguli oris. So depressor brings it down, levitator brings it up. Oh, thank you. Oh, for the kiss. Thank you so much. Another name for the levitator anguli oris is the caninus. It's the facial muscle of the mouth that's arising from the canine fossa. So your canine teeth, that's where it's at in there. It elevates the angle of the mouth medially. So that anguli name that's in there, the depressor decreases the angle, the levitator increases the angle, okay?
Where are you now?
So the depressor right here, that one is down here that corners the angle of the mouth lower. The levitator anguli, otherwise known as the caninus, is what brings the corners of the mouth up. Then next is the levitator labii superioris. So we just did the levitator anguli oris. Now levitator means bring up. Labii is lip. Superioris is the one on top. So it's the one that elevates the upper lip. So we have right here the levitator anguli oris is right here in the cheek, where the levitator labii superioris is going to be through the upper cheek to pull the upper muscle. Next, we have the masseter. So mastication is another name for chewing. Okay, so the next one is going to be the masseter. So masseter is the muscle that works in mastication. Mastication is chewing. Next one is the risorius. Risorius is it's a thin little muscle in the cheek. All of these are just pulling the lips into different ways. If you guys think about how many different directions our lips can go in, it's because of all of these different muscles that are working to pull the lips in different ways. Next, we have the triangularis. The triangularis muscle is the depressor. It's also known as the depressor anguli oris that we already talked about. So it's the same muscle. So the triangularis is the depressor anguli oris. We already talked about. It's the frowning muscle. So you need to know that for the test. Which one is most associated with frowning? The triangularis or depressor anguli oris. Same thing. Next is the platysma. Works with the lips and the chin. Then we have the zygomaticus minor, which is, so our zygomatic arch is another name for our cheekbone. So zygomatic is cheekbone. So zygomaticus minor is that muscle of the cheekbone. And then we have the zygomaticus major, which means it's a bigger muscle that connects to the cheekbone. And it draws the angle of the mouth. Superiorly means up, and posteriorly means to the side, to allow one to smile. So both the zygomaticus minor and major both aid in smiling. Here's a couple more around the mouth. We have lots of muscles around the mouth, lots and lots. So the quadratus labii inferioris is going to be this one on the left-hand side that's in green. This is the muscle, so if you break this apart, labii inferioris, labii is lip, inferioris is lower. So this is the muscle that helps lower the bottom lip, helps pull it down, but also forward. So it's that muscle that's working your bottom lip. Paired muscles. This one is located at the tip of the chin. This is our pouting muscle. So if you do a sad face, it's because you're mentalis. And then we have the orbicularis oris. So we learned about the orbicularis oculi. Oculi means eye, oris means mouth. So this is the sphincter muscle around our mouth. Circular muscle, large muscle. This is what makes our mouth be able to close into a circle. Muscles are just memorization. It really is just memorization. There's not a whole lot of, you don't have to understand a lot about them. You just have to memorize them. So memorize the names. I've had girls that draw them on their face in the mirror, find them, draw them on the mirror, watch how they move, and you see which ones are moving on your face as well.